Alright, we are back with the final part for the Conqueror's Realism analysis. Before we begin, a few things I want to talk about. For starters, there will be a poll in the cards at the top right corner of the video. This will pop up at the end to remind you again. This poll will determine who the next hero will be for the analysis, so please go ahead and vote, choose who you want me to talk about next. Second, just a reminder, if that you like my content, subscribing would really help me out as I'm so close to hitting 1,000 subs. It would mean a lot to me if you subbed, and it would encourage me to make more content like this. Lastly, I had one of the viewers inform me that every knight has a Mock de Virtute emote, and I was like, wait, really? So I had to check, and every single one actually has it. And only Gladiators truly looks like he's saying, well done. The rest all look so menacing, and Warden literally screams for his. Regardless, thank you for letting me know about that. I do appreciate the interaction you guys bring with these videos, and with so many of you participating in the videos, it makes it so much more engaging. So keep the comments coming, just know that there are some that slip through time to time, and it's hard to keep track with all the new people joining us. Oh, and one more thing, someone wanted to see all the gear that I chose as my recommended combined together at the end of my previous analysis, so instead I'm putting it here so that you can see it in my panning camera shots. Anyways, let's start the video. To begin, we're going to start with the stances like always. For Conqueror, this can be summed up in 4 basic stances: left guard, right guard, top guard, and full guard. Let me start by saying that they're all pretty solid. His footwork is pretty good as he provides enough spacing to keep himself grounded. In every stance he has, he leans forwards a bit, which helps minimize his body profile, allowing him to hide more of his body behind his shield. But he also is putting more of his forward weight into it, which also helps him stay grounded as well. Each way he guards himself with the shield is quite good as well. His top guard leaves himself quite open on the bottom, but considering that you'd only go into this guard to protect yourself from overhead attacks, it makes sense both in-game and in real life. Moving into this guard position in-game is a lot quicker than it would be in real life, but it does leave you exposed from both lower guard positions. Overall, the top guard is a solid choice. For the right guard, it definitely has the right form. Obviously, since the shield is strapped to his left arm, his right side would be the most exposed part. The way to protect yourself from an attack on the exposed side would be through this guard form, but it is also meant to be followed up with an attack. Obviously, in-game it's much harder to apply the nuances of real-life combat, so considering that the fact they know how to, for the most part, properly do this is more than enough in my book. Skipping the left guard for now, I will come back to that. We have full guard. Now this is probably the most basic a guard can get, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all. If I handed someone a shield and then said protect yourself and then got a fast pitch baseball launcher to shoot at them, they'd probably protect themselves in this stance. Why? Well, we can see here that the entire center of mass is being protected with this stance. All the vital organs are safely behind the shield, except the brain, but that's already being protected by the helmet in this case. And if this were real life and you didn't have a helmet, you could easily switch into top guard if you had to. Now, you can see the legs are still exposed, but in a combat scenario, the legs are always a risky target. To go for someone's legs, you really have to reach for it, and that means you're going to expose yourself in the process. So again, this is a pretty solid stance. Alright, finally let's look at Conk's left guard stance. So this one isn't particularly bad per se, but it just needs a little bit more. So I understand that this is the left side guard stance, which is supposed to mean that it protects the left side. That being said, you don't need to completely expose the center of your body just to protect the left side. The right guard effectively prevents the attacks from the right side, but it doesn't expose his entire torso from frontal attacks as well. And really, the way to mitigate this is simple. He needs to extend his arm out, which will in turn not just create more distance between him and his opponent, but it'll also cover more of his body in the process. Skalagram made a video about shield coverage and that sort, but that was dedicated more towards center grip types of shields like a Viking shield. The same idea can still be applied with strapped on shields like a heater shield, as I will show you here. As you can see, the shield covers most of my body and prevents line of sight with any exposed pieces. I can quickly adjust my guard in case I need to prevent any heavy blow from my left side, but I don't need to worry if someone were to feint left and go for a strike to my center or opposite side. Besides keeping his shield too far in, it's not that bad. They were going to get close to being viable, but we're just shy of actually being there. Now let's talk about actually blocking these guards. We start with the heavies, and I understand that when blocking a heavy attack, the player will stumble. It's a game mechanic, and that's how the game works. That being said, given the nature of these types of videos, I can't neglect the fact that he drops his entire guard when getting hit with a heavy attack, even if it's by a relatively lightweight weapon. Like Peacekeeper and her heavies should not make someone stumble that far back with an arming sword. There just isn't enough weight to transfer into your opponent to do that. That being said, it doesn't get much better with the light blocks. It looks like Conk pushes away the attacks after blocking them, which inherently isn't bad, but as you can see, in that doing so, he then compromises his guard and leaves himself exposed. Now if we look at parries, you can see that it's more of what you see with the light blocks, although a little less pushing the enemy away. It still does push the enemy aside, making it look like the Conqueror is exposing his guard afterwards. Now we can move on to basic attacks, and we will start with the Heavies, more specifically the Heavies off of superior block. Now it's got the right spirit, but it suffers from what most of the heroes on the roster have, and you'll see that pretty much all of Conqueror's attack have this. They drop their guard during the attack. You can see that after the block makes contact, Conk then moves the shield out of the way for his upcoming attack. If the shield is interfering with your current guard position, then maybe you shouldn't be attacking from that angle. And if you really need to attack from that angle, then move your shield to another safe guard position. Instead, Conk just lets his shield fly away from him as he swings his flail for the attack. Now as you can see, I'm using charged heavies to pull off the superior block easier, so I might as well say something about that as well. I like the idea that swinging your flail to gain momentum is like charging up for a stronger attack. That feels true to the weapon and makes sense. You could just try to sling your flail at an opponent, or you can try to wind up your attack to get extra power out of it. Speaking of unblockable heavy attacks, let's quickly look at Conk's full block flail uppercut before we look at Conscript's attrition, which is his light or heavy infinite combo. Now this attack is absolutely meaty. Not just does it sound painful, but calling this move an uppercut is a very apt description for it. Most helmets, especially the ones before the introduction and popularization of the bassinet, have a weak spot underneath the jaw, so seeing this used on pretty much every hero in the game is quite brutal, considering that the only person who would have a helmet to mitigate this kind of damage would probably be Lawbringer. It's like the pop-top finisher, but you had the misfortune to still be living and forced to fight a Conqueror. Besides what the Conqueror is doing to the opponent, he's also lowering his guard again. Like I said, you'll pretty much be seeing this throughout his entire kit. Now we can move on to Conscript's attrition, so I don't have much to say in detail about this one as there's so many combinations, and we've already talked a bit about Conk's attack patterns a little bit beforehand. What I will say is that I like the overall idea that attacking from different sides increases attack speed. The best example of this is left-right combo for light attacks. It's much faster than trying to do a right combo or a left combo, but it also plays into the idea of momentum. If your flail is already on the left side of your body after you've done a right side attack, that means it makes sense to continue that momentum into a left side attack to then bring your weapon on the right side again. Now looking at our final flail attack, we have the zone attack. I think it's interesting because it shows the big theme when it comes to using a flail, which is momentum. We've seen the momentum in his charged up heavy, we see momentum in his infinite combo, and we're seeing momentum here in another way. The idea behind this attack is to constantly surround yourself with the weapon and prevent anyone from getting close to you. As you might expect, this is about as effective as it is in game. Unless you're fighting a bunch of lemmings like minions, no one is going to get close to you and they're probably just going to wait for you to get tired. That being said, this type of swinging does have its advantages. For example, on horseback. Swinging your flail to gain momentum anywhere else might injure you or your horse, but gaining momentum above you first, so then striking below to prevent unintentional injury might be helpful. Besides that and the fact that he still isn't protecting himself with a shield, not much else to say about this move. One final thing to talk about for his attacks is the fact that he cannot feint any of them. Now for this very strict definition of what the game determines as a feint, I can understand that. Their reasoning is that a flail cannot stop mid-motion and attack from another direction like a solid weapon could. That makes sense. Hopefully they adhere to this rule and make sure that the overall continuity of their reasoning makes sense. Wink wink. Now as we transition from attacks to bashes, what better move to start with than his heavy cancel into shield bash? Oh hey, that looks like a feint. Oh wait a minute, it's not a feint, it's a heavy startup cancel. Ah yes, my apologies. Very different to an in-game feint, which is meant to cancel the startup of a heavy. Anyways, whatever, it's in the game. So as long as it looks coherent and understandable, then everything will be fine. Oh my god, Jesus tap dancing Christ, what is that? Okay, I can believe the right side cancel, and I can kind of believe the top cancel, but what the fuck is going on with the left side? It looks like he's rewinding time to do a bash instead. It looks like packet loss when the server shits itself. He turns back around in an oh shit, I forgot my keys kind of way that makes it look absolutely wonky. I feel like I don't have to explain this, but just so everyone here is on the same page, this is in no way practical. Look how long it takes for him to turn around. It looks like a solid second he's just not looking at his enemy, which is really easy to get a dagger in your neck. This just looks wrong. But now that we're talking about bashes, let's look at some of the basic dodge bashes. The dodge bash and the shield bash mix-up look relatively the same, except with the shield bash mix-up really swinging the shield more. But at the same time, this mix-up wall splats while the basic dodge bash does not, so it makes sense. Now looking at how the Conqueror performs the bash, is it realistic? I mean, I don't want to say that it's not, but we've talked about how putting your entire body weight into an attack and what can happen if you do. All you need is someone who knows what you're doing and steps aside for your entire attack, and now you're facing a direction of nothing while they're still in a position where they can do some serious damage to you. That being said, there are ways to strike with the shield, but we'll get into that in a bit. But focusing on these moves right now, yes, technically if you could guarantee that you would hit your opponent head on with a bash, then I suppose it could work, and it might knock them off their feet. Speaking of getting knocked off their feet, we have the move called the Charging Shield Crush. This is another very applicable name. Basically, it's like Shield Bash, but the Conqueror gets a running start and then almost tackles the opponent with the shield. That's pretty fucking intense, but this exacerbates the problem that we had before. If your opponent moves out of the way and or uses your momentum to throw you to the ground, you are in some serious trouble. So this, in my opinion, is less plausible than the other one. Finally, let's talk about something a little bit more believable and end on a high note here. Conqueror's guard breaks. Now, overall, the idea of a guard break isn't the most realistic thing, but let's look at how he throws people. At least 3 of the 4 are really good because it shows how at least I would attempt to strike with the shield. See, with the shield bash, it's hitting with a very large flat plane that distributes the force you're applying too much. This means that you won't cause a lot of damage this way, but you might knock your opponent down. In a real fight, you don't want to do anything that might work, you want to do something that will work and that will end the fight quicker. So let's look at throws. To start, we have the forward throw. It's really simple. He gives the opponent a jab with the edge of the shield. Again, that's a hard shield edge, and the shield has quite a bit of weight to it, especially a heater shield. That's not going to be fun, especially if someone knows how to deliver a strike like that. Next, we have the right side throw. He does a big swinging strike to the head that debatably looks more painful than the forward throw. Next, we have the left side throw. As you can see, it doesn't really look like he's hitting with the edge of the shield on this one, but considering that this is supposed to be a throw, I suppose this is acceptable. Lastly, his back throw. He wraps his flail around the opponent and pulls them behind him. If you watch the previous parts to this, then you know that the flail wrapping around anything doesn't really make sense at all. And again here, don't get me wrong, this is cool and all, but it doesn't make much sense. Besides, this is a flail, not a whip. And even then, a bullwhip doesn't have as many magical powers as Indiana Jones would like to have us believe. Now before we end this, remember to vote for the next hero you would like me to do. It is in the top right corner of this video. That being said, please subscribe. It really helps me out a lot, and it lets me make content like this to be shared with others. Also, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, training with a flail or flail-like weapons that you'd like to share, feel free to leave it down below. I appreciate all the feedback you guys give me so long as you're courteous about it, and I have to say I am excited to see what these poll results will bring in. But until then, I hope you guys have a great day. Peace.